listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of those shows. But tonight it is your boy Pat Lane here with my man Matt St. Jean on the Patriot Nation podcast, and talking about Patriots Commanders. Little joint practice going on today, and we get some people checking in. Patrick Brown over here, who actually came up to see me today. Patty Bowen, I'm sorry, who came up to see me today, which is pretty cool. Ray saying hello. The New Jersey Nets in Idaho apparently are watching. Look at that. Our reach is expanding. And someone from Berkshire County, as a matter of fact, Walker Phillips saying hello. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate that. And so here we are, Matt.
What can be better? Patty and Agglebum. I love that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's we got it's not real football, but the closest thing we've had to it so far this year, and it's awesome to start to get an idea of how our guys stack up against the other 31 teams.
Yeah. You know what? It was interesting. Jack's asking if we got any "we want Terry" chants at practice today. We did not. There were no "we want Terry" chants at practice. But the crowd, this was the most energy I've felt from a crowd in a while. People were excited. They got there early. It obviously helps that there's a young stud superstar quarterback on the other side.
Yes.
But you had that last year with Jalen Hurts, right? Now, to a lesser extent. Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, is a much bigger star than Jalen Hurts is right now. Whether he's a better quarterback right now or not, I don't know. But he's a bigger star than Jalen Hurts is. He has more star power, at least, in my opinion. So, but still, the crowds were wild today. People were super excited. The ramps were completely full, which was awesome. That was really cool. And so I'd like to see the excitement over there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, and I do think it seems like the excitement was backed up to any degree by the play on the field, which is a first for New England in the past 3 years here.
Yeah.
I think you draw the comparisons between this and the joint practice with Philly last year, and it's impossible to tell based on what we saw today how good the Patriots are going to be. But from what we saw against Philly last year, you knew immediately it was not a good team.
Right.
And the fact that, we haven't hit a bump like that is good. We're eliminating possibilities here for the team to just go out there and look like they don't belong. And we're cruising above that, bottom 5, bottom 10 team in the league trajectory. So just staying above that is where you want to be at this point. If they somehow turn into a contender this year, that's incredible. But what you're trying to avoid in year one is bottoming out, trying to start to build something and lay that foundation, which they didn't do last year. And by all reports, today was a good day.
Yeah. And, I think the place to start, and Jack asked about it and someone else asked about it as well. I missed who it was. Walker asked about it as well. I think the start, you got to start with the offensive line. I think you start with the offensive line. The biggest issue for me, really simple. The depth is a concern for me. It's a concern. Your backup tackles don't look great. Marcus Bryant looks decent at times. At times looks decent. He also had maybe the single worst pass one-on-one rep I've ever seen in my entire life, where he just literally didn't touch the guy. I floored. And what's hard is that Taylor had credited him for a win on that. He can't see it. He's on the other side of the field, and So I was like, no, he's completely guy just blew right by him. And he's like, oh, I thought he pushed him wide. So he's like, all right, good to know, and so and on this on the same end of it, the Patriots were on my end, so I could see them. But the Patriots defense was on the other side. They were on the far field. I couldn't see a thing. I saw zero one-on-one action from them.
And
I heard that some of the guys did well. I heard that some of them struggled, but I saw none of it.
So I just want to. You said the offense is on the close field and the defense is on the far one.
Yes.
As a reminder for those at home, I just think that note before getting anything else is important, because when they did the joint practices with Philly last year, they put New England's offense as far away from the fans as
Bingo.
they could still technically see it. And maybe it's reading too much into it, but when you look at the fact that last year it looked like they were trying to hide the offense and the offense was abysmal, the fact that this year they're willing to put that offense up near the fans where they can see it. I think if you want to view it charitably, you could say that they're confident in the building and they're wanting the fans to see the offense. I think even the most negative view here is that even if the offense isn't doing well, this is Vrabel getting those guys ready for the accountability of, hey, on Sundays, you're going to be in front of these guys. So we're going to start getting used to that right now. And if you don't play well, you're going to hear about it. So let's go out there and play well, because nobody wants that to happen.
Well, I think here's the biggest thing for me with the offensive line.
Yeah.
The right side was rough. We didn't see Morgan Moses really at all. He did come up at one point, but he did not practice.
What was the starting line today from left to right?
The starting line today from left to right was Campbell, Wilson, Bradbury, Onwenu, Jacobs.
Okay.
Jacobs looked awful. Was atrocious, abysmal, terrible. I'm going to run out of adjectives. He was awful. He cannot be your starting right tackle week one. Now, the Patriots are confident that Morgan Moses is going to start week one. I'm fine with that. The concern is if Morgan Moses, who's 34 years old, gets hurt or gets banged up, DeMontre Jacobs is your first guy off the bench, and that's a scary proposition. So he didn't look good. Onwenu struggled at times at one-on-ones. He also had the best rep of one-on-one I maybe have ever seen before. The guy the defensive lineman came into him, and he just extended his hands and completely stonewalled him, and then didn't move. Neither of them moved. The other guy's trying to move, and he was just like, nah, we're good right here. We can stay right in this spot. So that was impressive. He struggled at times. Strange was awful. But I thought Jared Wilson really played well, both in 11-on-11 and one-on-ones. He dominated the one-on-ones for the most part. He one of the reps maybe he lost, but I thought he did very, very well. And I thought Will Campbell was fantastic today. I thought he was fantastic today. There are still people questioning him, and this is going to happen because there are people right now saying he's a guard, he's not a tackle. What's going on? I don't know how, and I tweeted this out, and I will say it again. And my buddy Wes, who went to practice with me, who actually is going to be on the show on Saturday, said this as well. If you were there today and you didn't walk away from that practice thinking that Will Campbell, at worst, right now is a starting caliber left tackle, then I have no trust in you. Zero trust that you know football. Because I thought he looked great today. And so that's a good thing. Now, that doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but that's a good thing. You want to see these guys trending in the right direction. And I think Campbell and Wilson on the left-hand side has a chance to be very good for a long time. And if that's the case, I feel really, really good about where the Patriots are headed with their offensive line.
I think, one of the interesting things about this discussion, the Patriots signed Morgan Moses. I think the optimism there was, you can set and forget the right side of your line, and knowing that left guard is going to be possibly an open spot all season. So gives you the opportunity to like, all right, we know the right side's going to be good. Then we can focus on fixing the left side mid-season, see if we can make something work. Here we are early August, and I expect Morgan Moses and Michael Onwenu to mainstay the right side of the line. I think when it's real games, Morgan Moses is going to be out there. From everything we've heard, they're just kind of managing him because he's older and gotten banged up in his career. And I'm not concerned yet. I don't love that he's not out there all the time, though, building that chemistry with Onwenu. But it's the real side that we can set and forget here might end up being the left side with Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. Which I'm glad you're optimistic about Will Campbell. These reports are awesome. Obviously, I think he still has some learnings to do from some of the reports. It's not all roses, but this is not a good Washington pass rush. The best player in their pass rush is probably Von Miller. What's left of him at this point in his career? So this isn't a group that's going to get after you. And it seems like for the most part, Will Campbell held his own against those guys, which is that's. Especially with guys like that, it's just like if Will Campbell isn't a great player and he's just a good player, that's fine. You can live with that. It's not obviously not ideal, but you'll win. You can be okay. You just can't have a situation where he goes out there and he's a bust,
right?
And obviously, you can't rule that out until you see him play in real games. From what we've seen so far, he looks like he belongs. He looks like he hangs in there with everyone. He's a pro, and he might not be the best player in the NFL, but he looks like an NFL player. So that's awesome. Honestly, from some of the reporting, it almost sounds like Jared Wilson might be, I don't want to say the better player, but you look at his record in one-on-ones and how good he has been against some really good players there, and he might end up being maybe the most impressive player relative to expectations in this group. He looks, if everyone's healthy, I kind of feel like we can just pencil in Campbell, Wilson, Bradbury, Onwenu, Morgan Moses as your line. Yeah. And maybe we see some change at the center spot. I know there was some movement there today, and maybe you get an injury at right tackle. But if you know that for 12 to 15 games, let's say, you're going to have those 5 out there and they can play together and work together for most of the season, I think you have to feel good about that. And especially, giving you a chance to win now and giving you an opportunity to evaluate what you have on the line going ahead into 2026.
Yeah, and that's, look, I think you nailed it on that. Wilson's a guy that a lot of people didn't think would play at all this year, right? Let him sit for a year, let him develop. And he's come out and looked fantastic. And I think that, he seems like he's ready to go. Now, the question is, and Randy, I think, mentioned this, is it possible that Campbell shifts to left guard and that Wilson shifts to center? I think there's a chance that happens, right?
Paper, yeah.
And and we'll see, right? The only time will tell on that, right? Now, do I want that to happen? Do I want that to be the outcome? Absolutely not. No. But here's the real question, right? If Will Campbell moves inside and is a first team All Pro guard, are we upset about that? I don't know. That's,
I do think the answer to that question is going to be relative.
Right.
If Will Campbell ends up being an All-Pro guard, but Josh Simmons, who's in Kansas City right now, turned into an All-Pro tackle, I think you're going to be a little bit upset. If the tackle class just turns out to be kind of meh, then I think you feel good knowing, all right, we got a guy who
And I think Campbell, in my personal opinion, I think Campbell stays a tackle. I just think the way he plays like a tackle plays. I think, in my personal opinion.
And I think we'll see. Regardless, with where that team picked him and his pedigree, he's going to get at least a full season at tackle to figure it out anyway, if not longer. I don't.
Right.
I was someone here who questioned if he's a tackle in the NFL, and I think I still have questions if he's going to be, his best there. I'm also I don't expect a positional move to even start to be a real conversation until year 2 at the earliest.
Right.
Even as someone who had questions there, because he deserves some room to work through stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, here's the thing, right? Ultimately, what it comes down to for me, we're at training camp. We're at practice, right? As AI would say, right? You don't know, right? He looks like he can play. And so if I were basing my opinion off of what I've seen so far, he looks to be an above average starting left tackle. It's what he looks to be right now. But he hasn't he's played exactly 0 snaps in the NFL. So I have no idea what he's actually going to do.
Well,
I
how
can
many?
just base it off of what I've seen, you know?
When and he's gone against what, like a max of 15 different
Right.
NFL defensive linemen and
Correct.
pass rushers, the majority of whom are on his own team.
Right. Right. And
Yeah,
that's really what it comes down to is that, ultimately he hasn't had the game plan. His tape's going to get out there. Guys are going to, he's going to have to go against good pass rushers in the division who are going to see him twice a year, right? That's a challenge. And so,
week 1 it's going to be Max Crosby.
yeah.
We're going
And
to
so
get the news
how's he
early.
going to hold up against those guys, right? That's the question. And we won't know that until we see that. He's going to have some struggles because he's a rookie. But I think what's encouraging to me is the stuff that you hear about him and about his nature. Keon White talking about he's always asking questions. He wants to learn. He'll get beat by a move and then study, why did I get beat by that move? Okay, what can I do to prevent that move next time? Those things, that's the stuff that gets me excited about it. And now, again, can he physically do it on the left, at tackle? We have to figure that out. That's what we have to find out. But I think mentality wise and work ethic wise, that's not going to be why he doesn't make it. And I think that to me, I feel good about what I've seen and what I've heard. Now it just has to translate onto the field, right? And so, ultimately that's all you can do. And I guess the other part for me is that, he's 2-time first team All-American, right? Like he's been really productive in a really good league ever since he was a true freshman. So that gives me a little bit more, comfort. But again, we don't know. Just like we don't know about Jared Wilson. I think Jared Wilson's looked fantastic, but he could go out there week 1 and look terrible. And then you're like, well, wait, where'd this guy come from? So, and I think that a lot of that then has to do with the center. And we'll talk about Bradbury in a minute. But anyways, that's my long-winded answer of we don't know yet. But I think that, I like the way it's trending.
Well, I think Wilson is a guy who is hyper athletic, so I expect him to do well on one-on-ones, and where things will get hairy for him are probably real games where there's real action and scheme coming at you, and it's not just block the guy in front of you.
Right.
But he seems good enough to learn things, and like I look at the roster right now, and it's all right. If that's your left guard and we're locking that in, this depth at offensive line starts to get real. Like it's an interesting battle, and I look at Cole Strange 2 weeks ago. I would have said he's your week 1 starter at left guard. Now I feel like there's less than a 50% chance he's on this roster because we're looking at best case scenario for him is probably backup left guard. He doesn't even seem to be in the center conversation really anymore. Is he third string center at best? And they just brought in Alec Lindstrom. So seems like he's kind of in a battle for the backup left guard job, and maybe he wins that and makes the roster. But that's you're not really going to be seeing a lot of playing time there unless there's an injury. It kind of seems like him against Caden Wallace for that spot. Center seems to be between Garrett Bradbury and Ben Brown, and then right guard's Michael Onwenu, and Layden Robinson and City Sower behind him, but whoever in a hypothetical battle for the backup right guard job, the winner of that doesn't necessarily make the 53-man roster because, are you going to keep 10 offensive linemen? You might just keep, 4 tackles and 5 interior guys, and whoever is your backup left guard is also going to be your backup right guard. That might be how you handle this. So if that's the direction we're going, I don't think guys like I think Layden Robinson, Tyrese Robinson. Is Tyrese Robinson ahead of Layden Robinson right now?
It looks that way,
Yeah,
which is wild. I would have never guessed that, but it looks that way.
I mean, Layden Robinson was not good last year. City So was not that good the year before, and seems like they have very quickly found themselves just not, sink or swim league, and they're not swimming right now. So guys like that, I don't love the odds of them making the roster, and I have to think there's also a world where you might make a move for offensive line depth, where you say we have, we know we're going to keep 6 guys in the interior. Sorry, not 6. You're going to keep 4 guys in the interior: Onwenu, Bradbury, Wilson, and Ben Brown, and you're going to be good at center there. And when it comes to backup guard, we're going to go trade for someone or sign someone or claim someone at cut down day, or because we don't like the guys in the building. I think that's very much a possibility. And then at tackle, we talked about this the last episode, how backup right tackle might be one of the most concerning spots on the roster right now. Sounds like Bryant is doing an okay job there. It sounds like he might be the best option there so far. It doesn't mean that's someone you want playing real snaps in real football games. So, I think that, I feel good relative to expectations about probably the top 6 on the offensive line. And you're going to keep 8, 9, maybe 10 on the 53-man roster. So those spots are where I think we're going to see the roster churn a little bit more and maybe look for an outside addition. Also, in the offensive line conversation, I saw both the Patriots and Commanders beat writers picking up on the fact that the Patriots struggled to run today. Someone did one big play with Trevian Henderson, and that was about it. They were able to throw the ball, so this isn't like the debacle against the Raiders a couple of years ago where they couldn't do anything on offense. But I expected this group to be better blocking against the run than the pass, because Garrett Bradbury's a better run blocker than a pass blocker. Will Campbell, I liked him better as a run blocker than a pass blocker. Jared Wilson's hyper athletic. Michael Onwenu has always been a good run blocker. And when Morgan Moses is out there, he's also a good run blocker. I expected that to be the strength of the unit. So it's just minor alarm bells going off if they struggled with that today. That's something I want to look for Friday night.
Yeah, and that's something definitely to pay attention to. I think Garrett Bradbury's the second play of 11 on 11 just allowed an instant pressure for what would have been a 5-yard loss as May was handing the ball off to Ramondre. It was just like, what are we doing here, dude? I think that there's a real chance. Okay, maybe that was a little too strong. There's a non-zero chance that Ben Brown is your starting center and Alec Lindstrom is your backup center, and neither Garrett Bradbury nor Cole Strange make the roster because they've looked that bad. Bradbury has not looked good. And I know he's maybe still a little bit banged up, but he has not looked that good. He was not good last year in Minnesota. So I look at it, and Ben Brown's been consistent. He's not great, but he's looked better than Garrett Bradbury. Has he looked good? Not necessarily, but he's looked better. And Ben Brown's also, that matters.
He's also younger.
And he's also significantly younger.
In theory, at least, there's untapped upside with Ben Brown that there isn't with Garrett Bradbury. Same for Lindstrom. And hypothetically, if Cole Strange gets back in that conversation at center, it would apply to him too. Although, well, as far as we could tell, Ben Brown's the only guy who's been consistently snapping the ball well with May. And, if all of these guys are not that good, I'll take the guy who's young and who can snap the ball. And try to fix the rest. And, and also, of all the spots on the offensive line to fix, center is the easiest. That's something you can fix without expending a lot of resources.
That to me is the biggest issue. And that's why if Jared Wilson is a good left guard, I would just leave him at left guard. Now, if he's a mediocre left guard and he can be a really good center, well, that's a different story. But if you're getting fringe Pro Bowl level from Jared Wilson, I would leave him at left guard. Like, there's no reason to mess with that. So
you can leave him at guard for the season and revisit the center stuff next offseason. And even if it's not like, if you want in 2026 or 2027 or sometime in the future for him to be your starting guard and also your backup center, or at least you want him to have that option, with his history, I think you'd be
Yeah,
I think it'd be silly not to explore building some connection with May, snapping the football, just as a break glass in case of emergency option. But you drafted him to play offensive line. Guard is a more valuable position than center, so if he can play that at a high level, I'm sticking him there unless we have something else that we had to work around.
Yeah, I agree. And, so we'll see. I think you mentioned Marcus Bryant. In my opinion now, he's looked like the best of the backup tackles. As you said, that doesn't mean I want him playing meaningful snaps in the NFL.
That bar is underground.
That's correct. It just means that he's looked better than DeMontre Jacobs and Jack Conley, who I think Conley has a chance to make the team on the practice squad. He's not making the roster for sure. That's guaranteed. He's not making the roster. He does have a chance to make the practice squad. He's looked okay at times. I think Vidarian Lowe is just kind of working his way back and is with the third unit. Now, if that's just my assumption, is he's with the third unit because he's been hurt. And they're not just going to insert him into the second unit. And Marcus Bryant has done enough to earn the snaps that he's gotten at left tackle in the second unit. What I would like to see is for them to move DeMontre Jacobs back to the third unit, move Marcus Bryant to right tackle in the second unit, and Vidarian Lowe up to left tackle in the second unit. That's what I'd like to see. You're going to see, I think at least, you're going to see a good, healthy dose of Vidarian Lowe at left tackle Friday night. That's what I think. Could be wrong about that, but I think you're going to see him at left tackle, and I think you're going to get a good look of Marcus Bryant on both sides on Friday night. And
I want to pull in a comment here, by the way, from Randy, just talking about how the center makes line adjustments in the conversation about it. Worth noting that in the Josh McDaniels scheme, it's the quarterback who's going to be making those adjustments. So a little bit less of a mental burden on the center in this offense. Still an important position, especially in the running game with the stuff Josh McDaniels likes to do, and you just have to be not awful as a pass blocker. That's basically the bar, is figure out where you're going and make contact with somebody and don't get bowled over. By the way, while we're talking offensive line, I do feel like this segues us nicely into a player who is not on the offensive line, but is notable for blocking today. And this leads into what I think is my favorite story of the day. That's Trevian Henderson, baby.
Yep.
Who scrapping it up with Von Miller in pass blocking drills, taking him to the turf and starting to fight over it, which then has your coach breaking it up and Will Campbell diving in. That is awesome.
Fantastic.
It's just incredible all around. I absolutely love it. That is culture in action right there. It's why you brought all of these guys in, it's the coach and your top 2 draft picks all scrapping on the back of a good play, which is what matters. You don't just want the culture, you also want them to play good football. And you block a guy to the turf, and then it starts, and it's such a good block that it starts a fight, and then you're willing to back up the talk. So I loved that today, and I'm so excited to see Trevian Henderson out there.
It was the absolute best. It was the absolute best. And from my vantage point, from behind the play, I thought that Campbell was the one that threw Miller on the ground. I saw just the tail end of it, so I may have been wrong about that. Nevertheless, the 2 of them on the ground, and then Vrabel. Let me tell you something, my friend, because I'm behind the offense, so I can see. I'm behind everyone, and Vrabel sees what's going on, and it's like a scene on the WWE. Vrabel just sprints and dives into the pile and is instantly trying to rip Campbell off. And all of a sudden, there's just a scrum of people. And Vrabel comes out, and you're just like, he is an absolute lunatic, like a lunatic. And I couldn't love it more. But that's exactly, you hear the players talking about it after the game, like, he's in it with us. This is what he does. Like, this is who he is. This is what our team is. This is, for me, this is exactly the type of mentality that they're trying to build. You're going to hate playing against us because we're going to play to the whistle. We're going to play to the echo of the whistle. That's how we're going to play football. And if you don't like it, then too damn bad. I think that to me is awesome. Is awesome. But it was my favorite play of camp so far. Not even close.
And that's awesome. Like, that's why you brought Henderson in. And it's where somebody in the chat here was asking, has Henderson beat out Ramondre? Jack with the question. I'll note, I was listening to Ringer Fantasy Football Pod today. They were doing their running backs preview. One of the guys on there noted he asked someone in New England, someone I think affiliated with the team, basically, you guys drafted Trevian Henderson to be like the long-term back, right? He can be the guy to really take the reins in 2026. And their response is, we think he can do it in 2025. I don't know if Trevian has beat out Ramondre, and I think no matter what, it's going to be a three-headed monster out of the backfield because Antonio Gibson can play, Ramondre can play, Trevian Henderson can play. They have different strengths, and I think one of the reasons that Henderson can be so dangerous in this offense is you can play him simultaneously with either of the other two and actually make it work as something more than a gimmick package. You can run some real stuff out of it. Man, if Henderson's going to do that, I think it's going to be hard to take him off the field except to just give him a breather when he needs it, which he will if he's hitting guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a phenomenal pass blocker. He has breakaway speed, and he's a great pass catcher. That's insane, right? And he reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs, but he reminds me of Jahmyr Gibbs. And if you can get 75% of Jahmyr Gibbs, like, holy crap, that's insanity. And so that for me is what I'm hoping for. Now, Ramondre, we'll see. If he keeps putting the ball on the ground, it's going to be bad news.
Has he been doing that at all during camp? I don't feel like I've read a lot about him losing the ball.
He fumbled on Friday.
Once. Yeah.
He fumbled once, one other time in camp. The whistle had been blown, but he was still up. And he fumbled. And again, does that count? Does it not count? I don't know. But he hadn't been tackled yet. And he was still kind of moving forward. So that, to me, counts as a fumble for me, at least. I know some of the beat writers didn't count as a fumble, but for me, I did. So, and then obviously he fumbled at the stadium practice as well. But that's, look, those things are going to happen at times. The question is, can he do it consistently?
Yeah.
Can he not fumble consistently? I mean, that's going to be the question. He couldn't do that last year, and we'll see. Henderson has looked explosive out of the backfield. The wheel route, and Mike pointed out, the wheel route is ridiculous. It's uncoverable. You put a linebacker on him, it's a touchdown.
He did drop one today, right?
He did. He beat a guy, had him beat, and then dropped a touchdown pass, which you don't like to see. But before that, he really hadn't dropped a pass. He has pretty sure hands. And so, you're going to drop him every now and again. I don't mind dropping him in practice, but drop him every now and again. But for the most part, like, that's what I'd like to see. Now, again, and Randy's pointing out that he's not a bell cow. And I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying we're going to give him the ball 20 times a game. But 12 to 15 touches a game, especially if they're explosive plays. Right now, their downfield passing attack has been Keyshawn Boutte,
Mac Hollins
today from Josh Dobbs, and Trevian Henderson. And that's it. That's been your downfield passing game. And I guess Javon Baker, but it hasn't really been successful with Javon Baker, but Javon Baker's done one of them. So that's been your downfield passing game. But if he can give that to you, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And I think the way the backs can work off of each other, I think will be awesome. And like the fact that Gibson can also be a receiving back should take some of the load off of Trevian Henderson too, so he doesn't have to do it all, but he can do it all when you need him to. Like I feel like he's going to be. I feel like he might not be a starter, but in any gotta have it drive, he's going to be on the field.
Right.
Which is, I think, more important for usage, especially because of his versatility. And, that's what you're kind of, if you're not keeping him on a snap count, but if you're trying to keep him fresh, it's for end of game situations where you want him to be, at his peak ability. So, I'm very excited to see what he's going to look like. Obviously, for people who have been listeners of the show, we all know it wasn't my favorite pick in the world, but it wasn't because I didn't think that he could do it. I really like him as a player, and I'm excited to watch him. And he was the only guy with a successful run today, really, from what we heard, which not entirely the fault of the other running backs, but having the speed and athleticism he does helps a lot when your offensive line might be struggling just to break tackles and make things work. And we know that they're going to have a diverse screen game and like draws and misdirection in there. Just like getting the ball to him on a screen pass, it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah, it's going to be great. Also, I want to point this out. And Nelson's been pretty consistent here. Don't downplay Baker. Is truly improved and still growing. I agree.
Do we want to do defense and wide receivers after a break?
Let's do defense and wide receivers after the break. That's a good call because I have some takes, and let's just say that I don't disagree with Patty. Let's just say that if you're looking at the chat, I don't disagree with Patty.
And before we change the subject, I want to answer Randy's question here because he was curious who I wanted instead of Trevian Henderson. Just for those who are curious, looking back at it, I wanted Luther Burden. I wanted Mason Taylor. I wanted Nick Skorton. I wanted Donovan Ezeraku.
Yes,
Luther Burden, I think, has been up and down in camp, but the ups have been really good from everything I've heard. Ezeraku, I haven't seen a ton about, but at one point I saw a beat writer saying he was one of the best players in camp for the Cowboys. Mason Taylor, I think, has also looked really good for the Jets.
Yeah.
And then got hurt. And then Skorton, I think, has been hurt for like the last week or so. It hasn't practiced. So I think since the pads came on, he hasn't really been involved for Carolina. So way too soon to say anything there.
Yeah, we all know Matt Waldman, who had Luther Burden as his number one overall wide receiver. Wanted Luther Burden, Ezeraku, however you freaking say his name. I got it right. During the draft process, I did eventually get it right. But
I think it's Ezeraku.
Well, there you go. Look at that. I got it right again. But I do think that he would have been a lot of fun to have. Mm-hmm. But, if Trevian really brings the juice to this Patriots offense like it looks like he can, it can pay off as a good pick.
Yeah.
And then
I'm excited. I think he's a good player. It's not coming on Trevian at all. So excited to see him.
Yeah. So, all right, here we go. Our ad break is, of course, for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash with millions of members. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Guess what, baby? Guess what? The NFL is back. Football is back, baby. And that means when you put in your lineups, you can put football in there along women's basketball, along with baseball, along with esports. You can make a lineup with all 4 of those sports. What is better than that? Again, don't forget, they take MasterCard, Apple Pay, Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals as well. And on Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday, 15 to 25% off of projections, selected projections. And on Friday, coming up on Friday, hey, guess what? Someone has a game on Friday. You can throw them into your lineup, you know what I'm saying? If you opt in on Friday, tap the checkbox in your lineup builder, and you're eligible for protected play. Choose the squares from any game on the board. And if your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. Come on now. Come on. What you're going to do, download the app PrizePicks, put in the promo code CLNS. When you play your first $5 lineup, you get $50 instantly. Again, download the app PrizePicks, put in the promo code CLNS, and when you play your first $5 lineup, you get $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. All right. Let's get into wide receivers. Everyone wants to talk about the wide receivers. We'll get into the wide receivers. Pop just murdered people today. Mikey Sanders still, is going to have nightmares of Pop Douglas. He just worked them all over the field. And I know Sanders still ended up with an interception after a really nice play by Bobby Wagner, but
Sanders still's a good player.
He's a really good player. He is, yeah. And Pop Douglas made him look foolish. So, I think Pop looked awesome today. I'm not really sure what this guy's talking about. Gerard. Oh, I thought it said Booty. Sorry. My bad. Kendrick Booty. Jesus Christ.
We got two KBs and it's screwing everyone up.
Keyshawn Booty looked really good. He's on the team. I thought Mac Hollins looked good today. He made some plays. And listen, does Washington have the best defensive secondary in the league? No. But there was some talk about Javon Baker before the break. I'm telling you right now, I've been pounding the table on this. I'm going to continue pounding the table on this. Javon Baker is making this roster. It's happening. He's going to make the roster. He's ahead of Polk. He's ahead of Bourne. He's ahead of Chisholm. He's making the roster. And one of the big reasons why Gerard, it wasn't your fault. That was my fault. I thought you said Booty, you said Bourne. It was 100% on me. But one of the reasons why Baker's making the roster is because he's a special teams guy. He's been working with the first team punt team as a gunner. Do you know what else he's been doing? He's been working with the first team punt return team as a blocker. He's making this roster. He's also looked okay. Not great, but he's looked okay as a receiver. And for me, if you're talking about it's between Polk and Baker plays special teams and Polk doesn't, that's a really, really, really easy decision to make.
Well, and I think you can pretty quickly divide this wide receiver group into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is going to be Diggs and Pop. These are your top 2 receivers. Those are the guys who are pretty much never going to come off the field as long as they're healthy.
Right.
Both good players. They're fits in this offense. Those are your guys. That next tier to me is going to be Keyshawn Booty, Mac Hollins, Kyle Williams. I feel like there's kind of an open competition right now for that third wide receiver spot in 11 personnel groupings. And I do feel like things have been quiet with Kyle Williams. I do find that he has made plays. It hasn't been totally quiet. I don't think I heard his name today once with joint practices, which caught my attention. He was out there, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, he was out there. Yeah, he didn't do much.
Yeah. So maybe he's not in that competition. Maybe it's just Mac Hollins versus Booty right now. Now, Mac Hollins had a good day today. He's experienced in the league. He's produced in Mike McDaniel's offense before. Mm-hmm. And he's a do-it-all guy. We talked about him a lot. Booty, who I thought was not on the outside looking in, but someone who, when you change coaches, you never know how they're going to treat the new guys. And Booty immediately was clicking, and he's playing very well and had a really nice touchdown catch today. So, any doubts I think I had about him coming into this year, at least as a contributor, have been erased. And then that last tier is for the number 6 spot on the depth chart, if they're going to keep 6 receivers who can earn it. And that's Kendrick Bourne, I think, who is the leader in the clubhouse, but Polk, Baker, Efton Chisholm, it's kind of those 4 guys for it. And probably a week ago on this podcast, I talked about how Javon Baker was a guy whose best moment in New England was a pass that he dropped in the preseason last year. Yeah. That was his big play. And he came back, and the last week, he has been making plays in practice. And granted, a lot of them have been with the second team, but that's how Keyshawn Booty made this team last year. And, if he can be the best of that bunch, make plays, establish a little bit of a rapport with Drake May here and play special teams. I don't know how you unless you don't want to keep 6 receivers for some reason, which I can't imagine they'd want to do. I don't know how you keep him off the roster. And frankly, if he can do that in special teams, you might not be able to keep him off the game day active roster. Might be a situation where it's like, you just have 6 receivers active every game because 2 of them are going to be special teamers for you as well.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, Eric with a fantastic comment here. McCollum's looking like a car wash today with his cut-up undershirt. He had the same cut-up shirt the other day.
Did you hear his explanation for it?
Yeah, it's so stupid. Just stop.
For those who didn't, Matt Collins his undershirt is cut up like it's almost like a ribbon. It's like a curtain dangling from his body. And according to him, because it's individually smaller pieces of paper with more airflow, they dry off. Not paper, but fabric. They all dry off faster. So he gets better material for him to wipe his gloves off in between plays. I highly doubt that's how the science on it works.
You know what's interesting?
For him, I guess.
You know what's interesting is one of the Commanders' defensive linemen, I think it was. I don't know if it was Deron Payne, but it might have been Deron Payne. Anyways, he did the same thing to his practice jersey. He had it like cut up and stuff, which I was like, I don't get it, but who knows?
It works for it. A lot of athletes do a lot of weird things in the name of performance. Yep. So I'm not even going to bat an eye at this.
Correct. If that works for you, so be it. That's fine. So the question for me is, again, you keep the 6 receivers. I'm with you. I think the way you tiered it out makes a ton of sense. That 3rd receiver spot is going to kind of, I think, be a little bit of a rotation between Matt Collins, Kayshon Boutte, and Kyle Williams. I think Williams has flashed at times and then at times has disappeared a little bit. And I think that just comes from, he's a good player, but not a great player. And hopefully he can develop into a better player. But I think the speed that he brings, and I think he's a good route runner, but it's just, he's just not that guy yet. We'll see. He's a little bit of an older prospect, so we can't wait too long for him to develop into it. But the hope is that, by mid-season or by next year at the latest, he's able to kind of make that run. We'll see what happens. But, that 6th spot really to me is really Baker. And then I almost would put Bourne last out of those 4 guys. I think that Polk and Chisholm are both ahead of Bourne at this point. And I look at that and just say, like, that's, he doesn't really have a spot on this roster. I don't see a world where Kendrick Bourne is making this team. And I think that this could be a situation where if you were to trade Kendrick Bourne, right. And I think really what it comes down to is you're not getting anything back for Kendrick Bourne. But I think what you have the opportunity to get back for Kendrick Bourne is a team that says, you call up a team and you say, hey, look, you have a lot of depth at tackle. You're going to end up cutting a tackle that is probably pretty good, that might get picked up on someone else's practice squad. He's not going to make your roster, and you're not going to be able to get him through the practice squad. We have Kendrick Bourne, who probably isn't going to make our team, but, is a good leader in the locker room. And so let's just see what happens. Let's flip-flop those guys. And, we have a bottom-of-the-roster guy. You have a bottom-of-the-roster guy, but they're at different positions, and you need help at receiver. We need help at tackle. Bang. And I think that that's a situation where that could happen. And, similar to, and it's not the same thing, of course, but similar to the way that the Patriots traded Jacoby Brissett and got back Philip Dorsett, right? Philip Dorsett was a guy that hadn't performed up to expectations. They were thinking about cutting him. They traded him. You traded Brissett because you didn't need him anymore, which I think was a mistake, but whatever. You traded Brissett because you didn't need him anymore and got back Philip Dorsett, who actually ends up playing not really super pivotal role for the Patriots, but help them on their way to a Super Bowl. So, but yeah, we'll see.
My problem is that you would need to pay, like, whoever's getting Kendrick Bourne's gonna have to pay him like $6.5 million after trading for him, and he's just not
I don't
worth.
think anyone's going to do that. Yeah.
No, like no one's going to give up a draft pick for the right to pay him that. Um, and if there's a chance, like I think other teams are going to see the roster and go, oh well, even they're just going to cut him. If we're interested, we can wait a day and we'll get him the next day.
Right.
Because that's like for reference here, his cap hit this year at least like higher than Debo's.
Yeah.
Higher than, I mean, there's higher than, or a little bit less than Hollywood Brown, higher than Josh Palmer. I guess Josh Palmer's a better player than Kendrick Bourne.
That's not even close.
Yeah. So, I had high hopes. And I mean, not high hopes, but I had hopes that he could bounce back from the ACL this year. And so far, it hasn't happened. Maybe we see that change over the course of the next 2-3 weeks here. But as things stand, I think Kendrick Bourne's going to have a real tough time making this roster, which, it is in part because it seems like there's young guys playing well, and that's a good reason to have that kind of problem. So
it's a great point. And someone, is it Randy, pointed out Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got some interesting depth far down the depth chart. They drafted Cameron Williams late this year. They picked up Holland Pierce from Rutgers, who I loved. It was just a monster of a man. Holland Pierce feels like a right tackle kind of player. Huge guy, road grader type player. So that seems interesting. They have a ton of depth at tackle. Not all those guys are going to make the roster. It's just not possible for all those guys to make the roster. And so is there a chance that they move on from one of those guys knowing that they're not going to get to the practice squad? That's the question for me, at least.
Well, I think the more likely would be if you were going to somehow trade Bourne, like, are you to me it's who's the guy for the Chiefs, the tackle they paid a lot of money.
Oh, Jawan Taylor.
Yeah, that's one of those where it's like, all right, we'll take on Jawan Taylor's contract, and in return, we're going to lessen it, and you got to take Bourne's. Where I think he'd be a good fit in Kansas City. I think he's a playmaker when he's on, who needs a connection with the quarterback, and I think with Mahomes, like, that would make sense. And maybe you can get Taylor back, and that can be your, swing tackle option. So you have a backup who's better than what you have now. I just don't know if what's in it for Kansas City unless they really feel like they need wide receiver depth, especially when they probably feel like they can sit there and wait a day and say we'll trade this tackle the next day and we'll dump the full $20 million instead of taking 6 back.
That's actually a really great one. Jawan Taylor is on the hook for, they'll save $20 million by trading him.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that your cap hit, because you're trading for him, your dead cap number goes to 0.
Yeah.
So the Patriots could conceivably have Jawan Taylor on the roster for this year as their swing tackle, and then next year cut him for free and just say goodbye, or keep him if you want to.
Well, like, if he's serviceable,
right,
then that allows you to have
a tackle next year.
And he doesn't have to be good, but he can just be fine and band-aid. Like, let's say you're good enough that you're not in a range to take a tackle in the first round to shore up the right side, and there's just other better players there. All right, we just want to draft tackle, and we'll band-aid it for a year with Jawan Taylor, and we'll draft somebody else who we think can impact us more. Right. You go from there. It gives you some flexibility. We'll see. I think part of this is you would have to convince the Chiefs to part with him because, I'm sure they'd love to get rid of that money, but having quality backups is important in the league, and they probably have to see more from Josh Simmons before they're moving either one of those backup tackles. So, we'll see what they decide to do. But, I think that's definitely possible to just get Jawan Taylor for cheap at some point in this process. And get them to unload that contract. Yeah. Do we want to talk? You want to talk defense here for a minute?
Yeah, defensively, let's just get into it. Defensively, defensive line, really defensive line. Were the standouts today. Safeties had a hard time with Zach Ertz. Christian Barmore was a problem.
Sound like he had a good day.
Yeah, and if him and Milton Williams are going, Keon White, I guess, got pancaked at one point. It's going to happen. Right? You're going to lose reps from time to time. But if those three can be fairly consistent, the Patriots are going to be a problem. And I will tell you, I didn't see, as I said, the Commanders' offense was on the far side. So I didn't see much. They had two drives, I think, with their ones on our side. And I got a chance to see them. And from what I saw, Jaden Daniels was flushed from the pocket multiple times and had to get rid of the ball faster than he wanted to, had guys in his face and guys in his lap. And those, to me, are things that are important. And just to see them being able to do that was a good sign. Now, again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. And I think Washington has a good offensive line, but not a great offensive line. But I was still happy to see them doing that.
Yeah. Just reading the reports today, I think one of the things I thought was notable, which also confirmed some of what I'd read previously, Khyiris Tonga having a little bit of oomph to him as a rusher. Mm-hmm. It's funny, if you look at him and you look at his profile, you see this is a massive human being who plays nose tackle. You think, all right, this is a run stuffer and not much of a pass rusher. And then you actually look at some of his stats and some of his PFF grades, and he's worse as a run defender, run stuffer than you would expect, which take a little bit with a grain of salt with PFF, just knowing how they have graded some of the Patriots guys in the past, who I thought did very well as run defenders, but as a pass rusher was much better than I expected. And you don't need to get a ton from Tonga. He is going to be your third defensive tackle, or fourth if Josh Farmer can put things together and become a bigger part of your rotation down the stretch here. You need him to give you, 15 to 25 quality snaps a game, assuming there's going to be a rotation there, a healthy rotation. And if he can give you a couple of quality rushes in there, that's fantastic. You're loving that, especially because he's going to be on the field in running situations. So if you can get even a little extra pass rush out of those that you weren't expecting, that's phenomenal. If he can push the pocket at all with the other guys who are going to be on the field with him, I mean, that's so much better than what they had last year. And this is where NFL teams really can do well. Because now, once you start to figure out the rest of your defense, Tonga might end up looking like a really smart signing because you're going to ask him to do one thing, be a role player for this defense. And it looks like they may have identified that well, and he can do that. And he'll just be a really quality role player for you. Guys like that can be the difference between winning, 8 games and 9 games, or 9 games and 10 games, just because they make a couple splash plays in one game that'll turn it for you. We just did the 21-win series. How many guys the level of Khyiris Tonga did we see shift games in that stretch? So, shout out so far to Vrabel and the guys for identifying him as someone to bring in.
Yeah, and I think, the linebackers looked okay, I thought, from what I saw. Again, I didn't see a ton, right, because I'm on the other side of the field. But everything that I read seemed that they looked okay. Now, I will say this, and this is, Nelson saying it, and I've heard this from a lot of people, that Kyle Duggar needs to be traded. By the way, I will say, one thing I will say, because someone else mentioned it too. They were mentioning someone else, but Alex Austin, I thought, looked fantastic today. I thought he had a great practice. DJ James held his own again. But safety is the interesting one. There's a lot of depth at safety. I never see Kyle Duggar making any plays. I just don't see it. I don't see him making plays.
Did you see what Taylor Kyles had to say about Kyle Duggar today?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
And Taylor Kyles, ever the optimist.
Yes.
If he is not happy with how you've played in New England, not great.
Not great.
Duggar was, from what I read, playing with the backups today. He's second string now. Assuming the starting safety, the 3 safety defense is Hawkins, Peppers, and I'm blanking on Woodson.
Woodson.
Yeah. And like I pulled it up again because I wanted to double check I had my numbers right, but it's the coverage stuff for Duggar. He went from being, according to PFF, a top 10 zone coverage guy in the league to a bottom 10 guy in the league over the last couple seasons. The last 2, he's been one of the worst zone coverage safeties. And today, he could not cover Zach Ertz. There's no reason why Kyle Duggar is physically unable to cover Zach Ertz. And I don't know what changed in the last 3 years to make him go from someone who was, a borderline elite level playmaker in a defense that was making plays all over the place to this. It's definitely discouraging. You hate it because he used to be a good player, but it just seems like it might not be there anymore.
And I'm not really sure why. It doesn't, I don't know where it's coming from. So I don't know. I don't know. It's frustrating. On the plus side, Woodson has looked good. He had a batted ball on a quick screen today. Came in on a safety blitz untouched and made a nice play to jump up and get a deflection. And didn't end in an interception, but definitely could have ended in an interception if one of those D line was able to make a play on it. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we have in Kyle Duggar anymore. I thought he was a good player. He signed a big extension last year. I was happy about the extension. And then he went out and was terrible last year. And now he's getting passed by our third-round rookie who, when he was drafted, we all said, who? Right? I know people are excited about him in OTAs, and the Patriots and the media were excited about him in OTAs, but we were all like, what are we talking about here? And I think Woodson has looked good, but he also hasn't been a guy where I've been like, oh my God, this guy 31's all over the field. DJ James has jumped off the page, right? For a while, we were all like, who the hell is number 30 and how is he making all these plays? I haven't said that about 31. I think he's looked okay. He's made plays at times, but he hasn't been like around the ball nonstop making a million plays. Just hasn't been that guy, right? And so, but the fact that he's already, quote unquote, past Kyle Duggar, it's not a good sign for Kyle Duggar, and especially where there's a ton of depth at safety here. If you get rid of Kyle Duggar, you're talking Peppers, Hawkins, Woodson, Epps, Schooler, right? If you want to throw Schooler into the mix there, right? There's a lot of safeties. There's a lot of depth at safety. So you look at it and say, all right, well, we get rid of Kyle Duggar, and I don't necessarily want to get rid of Kyle Duggar, but if we did, there's still a good amount of safeties in the roster that I feel okay about.
And you can free up, like you're going to have to absorb some dead money this year, but you have the room to absorb that and take the cap hit this year and free up space the next 2 seasons.
Right.
If it's not working, it's not working. Don't try to force it. Maybe he can catch on elsewhere, but maybe that's where we're at with him, which is tough. Looking at the secondary, so it sounds like no Gonzo, no Carlton Davis right now. Mm-hmm. Alex Austin and DJ James, the next guys up. So is Marcus Jones with the third team corners?
No, Marcus Jones has been playing in the slot.
Okay, so that was separate. Okay, because it's right. So when the analysts or the guys have been writing notes up on it. They've only talked about like outside corner and safety, and they weren't really being specific about where Marcus Jones was repping.
Yeah, Marcus has been repping in the slot, and so
Okay.
it's been consistently those two on the outside, Austin and James on the outside, with Marcus in the middle, or Marcus in the slot, I should say. So,
And then your safety. Okay, so like the defense, I feel like is starting to come together, and
yeah,
I feel good about this secondary. And I think Duggar was someone we all identified early could be a casualty here with how he played, his cap hit, and the new coaching staff. And
yeah.
if he doesn't make this team, he doesn't make this team. It'd be a sad ending for a guy who less than 3 years ago was a dynamic playmaker. But I guess maybe that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, his cap hit is no joke, right? I mean, you're taking an $8 million hit on your cap if you cut. No, wait, no, that's not. That's
It's 14.
incorrect.
Well, his cap hit this year is $15 million,
Right?
and if you cut him,
You only save $1 million.
Yeah, you save $1 million, you still have to eat 14 of that.
Right. But to your point, you're going to save a solid amount the next 2 years after that.
Yeah, you save 12.5 and 13.5 the next 2 years.
Additionally, he's a guy that other teams would actually be interested in. Now, you're not going to get a ton for him, but unlike a guy like Kendrick Bourne, you're not going to get anything from Kendrick Bourne, right? You try to trade Kendrick Bourne, they're going to laugh at you, right? But if you try to trade Kyle Duggar, you're not going to get first round pick back for him or anything crazy like that. You're not even going to get a day 2 pick back for him, but you're going to get something back for him. And again, this is the type of trade. I think this really, to me, lines up a lot better with a Philip Dorsett / Jacoby Brissett type situation where you have a guy on your roster that you think has potential but isn't living up to it. We have a guy on our roster that we think has potential but isn't living up to it. Let's swap those two guys and see what happens. And I think I can get more out of Kyle Duggar than you're getting out of him. And, you think you can get more out of name the guy than I am, and we kind of go back. And that's the type of thing that gets done.
Well, if you're able to trade Duggar, you save more money. You're able to save over almost $11 million. I am not as optimistic they'd be able to trade him just because paying $11 million for a guy who grades out as poorly as he has the last 2 seasons, who immediately is someone who's dropped into the second team with a new coach. Not great. I do think the fact that you only save $1 million if you cut him, maybe there's a world where he's a backup, but you just keep him on the roster, and because he can do it, and he's a veteran, he's a good leader, and he can do all that stuff behind the scenes. And if you need him to play, you need him to play, and you wait it out a little bit, see if he's had some injuries, so maybe you just hope that with a little more time he bounces back. But tough spot to be in with him.
Yeah,
not obviously when he signed this extension, this is not where we were hoping things were going to go.
No, not at all. And so, ultimately it comes down to, look back on that draft, right? And you look back at that 2020 draft, and this is where what's so funny to me is that one of my favorite players in that draft was Jalen Hurts. I was so excited about Jalen Hurts, but I thought he didn't fit the mold of what the Patriots wanted as a quarterback. And so I said, well, if he doesn't fit the mold, then you can't draft him. Of course, the funniest part is that you ended up signing Cam Newton 2 months after the draft, so then it didn't matter. And that would have been the perfect guy to learn from Cam. Imagine if you had drafted Jalen Hurts and then signed Cam Newton. It would have been perfect. But anyways, the Patriots trade out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, good.
Right, Patriots trade out of that spot. They're at 23. They trade out of that spot. You pick up a second-round pick and a third-round pick with the trade back. 2 picks later, Brandon Ayuk gets drafted. I'm sorry. The pick after Brandon Ayuk is Jordan Love. Right? Patrick Queen gets drafted at 28. Like, all guys we could have used. Of CEH, man, we could have drafted. No, I'm just kidding. No, but T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Xavier McKinney gets taken the pick before Kyle Duggar. So you're looking at it saying, look at all these players. Look at all these good players. And you're like, oh, my God. Jonathan Taylor gets drafted a few picks after Kyle. Not that I want Jonathan Taylor, but nevertheless.
Be better than what they got.
Right. Antoine Winfield gets drafted after him. He's played pretty well in Tampa. Right. And so Jalen Johnson gets drafted in the second round there. Trayvon Diggs gets drafted in the second round there. Right. Again, I mentioned Jalen Hurts. AJ Epinesa, who just signed a massive contract extension with the Bills, gets drafted in the second round. Right. And so you're starting to look at this saying, if he doesn't pan out, it works out to not feeling good about where you're at.
Well, and that's how you get where this team is now. You look at the 2020 draft for the Patriots, and it's just real missed opportunity, which is tough. And I think you look at the end of the Belichick era, and this draft is a big reason why. Duggar was very good at one point, but has not lasted. Boucher has one good season. Anthony Jennings is, he's a real player. But I think that's about, picked at 87, I think that's about a par for that pick, what you've gotten out of him.
Yeah.
meets expectations. Asiasi, Dalton Keene, horrendous busts. A kicker who doesn't even make the team. And on when it was a great pick. But, a center that retires. You draft two guys here that don't even make it to camp.
I will also say it's sickening when you look at the stuff that happened. Patriots traded that first round pick for a second and third round pick. Now they draft Kyle Duggar. They take the third round pick and they move up to 55, I think. It wasn't 55, but 60 to take Josh Uche. The pick they traded was 71. The Ravens draft Justin Madubuike at 71. And you're like, dude, if you had gotten Justin that's a first round talent right there, right? And so,
or you don't move. Zach Bond goes at 74. It's a better outside linebacker than Uche, and I love the Uche pick just because of the upside with him.
Yeah, and it just didn't pan out, but
But Bond to me was someone who I had rated very highly. I didn't understand how he dropped to the third round. I'm actually forgot he dropped that far because I had him rated as like a borderline first, like a top 50 pick.
Well, then the Saints put him an inside linebacker, which is a Saints issue. Yeah. As soon as he went to Philly and played outside linebacker, it's a different story.
The other way around, he was outside in the Saints.
Oh, right. You're right. Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I would have had that wrong too. I had him as a Kyle Van Noy prototype. Which maybe if he ends up in New England with Bill Belichick and Van Noy there, maybe that pans out.
Then it would have been maybe a different story. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, the guy I wanted in that draft was Denzel Mims. So we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But you look back at that and it's you're one pick away from Justin Jefferson. You could have had the quarterback and Jalen Hurts. And I do think one of the what ifs I ask is what happens in that draft if Bill Belichick, who is best buds with Nick Saban, says we're going to draft Jalen Hurts and we're going to sit him for a year behind Cam Newton and develop him, and then we're going to play him the year after. Where are the Patriots now? Where's Bill Belichick now? Where's Jalen Hurts now? How does that all pan out?
Yeah.
Because, maybe that saves Bill Belichick, or maybe things still go the way they did with Bill and things don't work with Hurts. I think that's one of those questions. Interesting draft to look back on. I don't want to write this obituary yet because Kyle Duggar is very much still on this roster and playing with the second team today. In a week, that might not be the case. But if he's going to be still playing with the second team for a while, but that might be it for him in New England.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see. We shall see.
Should we end it on a high note?
Let's do. Oh, you know what? I like that. Let's end it on a positive note.
I think we can hit two here. Drake May look good, and kicker you drafted look good.
Yeah, that to me, that competition, I don't want to say the competition's over because it's not. I think it
Parker
truly
Romo
was a competition. And I
Parker Romo's
think
kicked well.
he has. He has. But you've drafted a kicker. You're keeping the guy you drafted. If it's the same, in my opinion, the situation that you're in, you clearly believe in the kid. Unless Romo beats him out, it's his job to lose, right? And so that's to me, at least, that's the way I'm looking at it. And so I don't think the kid has lost the battle. You could make an argument maybe he hasn't necessarily won it either, but I think he's done enough that he should be the kicker unless he falls apart in the last few weeks, which is possible. He hasn't played any games yet. So if he falls apart in the games, then certainly he could lose. But if it stays the way it is right now, he's your kicker, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the Patriots, I think.
Yeah, and then also Walker Phelps mentioning in the chat here. I think another high note we got to talk about. Jason Tatum out of a boot at practice.
Insanity that he's out of a boot already.
I just love seeing that he's walking around and doing stuff, and I can't wait to see him on a basketball court again.
Just just please, God, don't come back before you're ready. That's all I can say. Just don't come back before you're ready. Yeah. Also, Nikhil asked about Jaden Daniels stats. I didn't see any Jaden Daniels stats. There might be some in Commanders Twitter. I didn't see any in Patriots Twitter.
Reading some of the what I had found from the Commanders side of things. I didn't see stats there. So, which I think is strange. I think this was an issue last year. The fact that one side's closer to the fans, that side's also closer for the press. So I think everyone involved had a closer eye on what was going on with New England's offense than what was going on with Washington's offense.
That's incorrect, sir. The media tent, yes. So the stands, the way it's set up is they have two fields side by side. The stands are against one field. Mm-hmm. The second field is over across, and the media is positioned almost in between the two fields. So they have a good view of both fields.
Well, I remember last year the press complaining about not having a good view of the Patriots offense for the what do you call it? The disastrous practice against the Eagles.
It could have been because they were down the other end, like down the far end of the field. But if you're looking at the two different fields, they're like in the middle of the two fields. So they have a good view of both fields. Now, again, I don't know where they were as far as but I'm pretty sure they were running kind of near that end zone. So they would have had a decent view, I think.
Yeah. All right. Then, but for whatever reason, as far as I can tell, everyone was paying much closer attention to New England's offense.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. How about that? Also, William is saying he's falling from Singapore. Pretty far out there. Appreciate you, William. I think that William is living in the future, and it's now August 7th and not August 6th, which is kind of cool. But anyways, we appreciate that. Oh, speaking of across the pond, got to meet Classy Claire today. Super sweet, great kid. She's had a blast kind of being, she's up on Patriots Unfiltered, which is pretty cool. And has been living it up in her trip to New England, which is cool. So great. Just always brings some positive energy. So if you're not following her on Twitter, you should do that because she's always positive, always happy, always nice to everyone, which is nice to see.
Tight ends.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. Obsessed with tight ends. But no, that was cool, and I appreciate Walker Phillips saying, "Where is he? This live has been lit, no doubt." Yes,
come through again.
We appreciate.
Tell him when the next show is going to be.
I will. Yes. So Matt is going away this weekend. Patriots, of course, are playing Friday night. I will be at the game Friday night, and so I will not be recording afterwards because that's just too late. But on Saturday afternoon-ish, I don't know the exact time just yet. I'm nailing it down. I'm going to be with my two training camp buddies, Wes and Brian. I've been to most of the training camp practices with the two of them. They're both local football coaches as well, so they know quite a lot about the game, and it should be a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
we'll be doing that. Also, I've been doing walking breakdowns, which has been fun. I've been just doing walking practice breakdowns. I'm going to continue to do that throughout the season. So I'm going to do walking game breakdowns, just like a minute long on both Twitter and Instagram. Kind of after the game and figured that it's something fun to do. And so, yeah. So anyways.
And then looking ahead, Patriots have another joint practice next week at Minnesota. So
Yes.
we're gonna be keeping it to about the same schedule. We're gonna do a Wednesday night show after the joint practice to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they play a Saturday afternoon preseason game, and some point after that, we will be live doing post games. If you guys like this, that's the schedule for the next week and a half here.
Yep. So it's a bizarre schedule on the Saturday. My girls are coming home from camp that day, so I'll be driving up to New Hampshire to get them. But we'll see what happens as far as timing on that.
Yeah. You want to know what else I'm doing next week, Pat?
Ooh, let's hear it.
Do you know 5 Iron Golf? Have you heard of this place?
No.
It's a golf simulator that they have here in the city. And after 9 p.m., it's like cheap. So it's $25 for an hour on the sim, and like $5 bottomless wings, and a bunch of the drinks are $5. They do it cheap late at night. So next Friday night, you're gonna get an hour in the sim, have some drinks and stuff. And the fun part, they track all of your data, so I can then download all of the information about all the shots that I hit and actually have an idea of how far I'm hitting a golf ball.
I love it.
I hopefully with that I can put less golf balls into the woods or into the water.
I like that. Yeah. Hopefully, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I got nothing going on. No special things for me happening over here. But So it is. By the way, if you are listening in the New England area right now, it might change. Probably won't, but it could change. It looks like Sunday is the final Patriots training camp practice open to the general public. Now, I don't know if it's going to be full pads. My assumption is it won't be because they're playing on Friday night. So it would probably be some version of a walkthrough. Could be shells, maybe. Probably going to be a walkthrough or shells, but nevertheless, if you haven't gotten there already, if you have kids that want to go, Drake May has been spending over an hour pretty consistently after practice signing autographs. And a bunch of the Patriots have been doing the same. So if you have kids and you want to go, it's free to go. If you haven't been, I recommend it. And it looks like Sunday is the last day to go. So
I'm gonna guess too. Well, we'll see. The game Friday night. I kind of feel like Sunday is going to be a chill practice too. I can't imagine that's going to be high intensity that soon after.
I think so. And by the way, and I don't want to get into it right now, 80 minutes into our podcast, but the whole Greg Bedard thing where he's talking about this is the, easiest camp he's ever been a part of in 24 years of covering football or whatever. It's just such a non-story. We're just looking for things to talk about at this point. Like, Vrabel has made this camp, in my opinion, all about learning and understanding what you're doing and understanding the basics behind things. So, yeah, that means they're not hitting the crap out of each other nonstop, but they're playing with more intensity than they were playing with last year. They're just not pounding heads together. I think that there's a way to make the camp challenging without tackling to the ground. It's just like that doesn't matter. It matters in the game. That doesn't matter in camp.
Yeah. Well, and like trying to evaluate camp now, that's like trying to evaluate how good a teacher is without ever seeing a test score. Like, all right, like you might not like the style of camp so far, but if it generates wins, then it was correct for this group.
Correct.
And if this team doesn't win and they look disorganized and poorly coached and unprepared, that is an appropriate time to go back and say, maybe camp is not maybe we got to change some things with it. But unless things are so obviously unruly or out of control in practice that it can't possibly be productive. It's just a matter of what style works best for what group. And Vrabel has emphasized health. That's a huge thing for him, keeping guys ready for the full season. And different coaches have different approaches on this. Like Andy Reid notoriously has an incredibly difficult and demanding physical training camp. And part of that's because his philosophy, and this is a Bill Belichick thing too, is we're going to get all of this advanced work in so that by the time you get to regular season, it doesn't even feel intense anymore. These games don't feel like you're getting hit hard because it's so much less than what you dealt with before. And then there's another philosophy, which is that you're going to take a pounding either way. Let's reduce the pounding that we can control, reduce the physical toll on your body that we can control so the guys are fresher longer. I don't think one of these is necessarily right or wrong. It depends on your group of players and how they respond to things. So
exactly,
if they don't respond to it, then it might be an issue.
And that's really the biggest part of it, right? The biggest part of it is, does it work? Did you do the right thing for your people, for your team, for the people in front of you? And as a teacher, I can tell you, you don't teach everyone the same way. You can't. It doesn't work. And so you may have one way of teaching. You may have a philosophy that you believe in, but then you have to adapt and adjust to that philosophy based on the people that are in front of you. And if Vrabel looks at his room, and by the way, he's just here. It's his first year here, so he doesn't know all these guys just yet. He's still getting to know them. And so, for me at least, I think that he's still learning what they can do, what their limits are. But I think his real emphasis on health, I think, is something that is important. So we'll see. But, and that's, I just think it's silly. I think it's silly to talk about they're not hitting hard enough. It's just like, what are we talking about, man? That's just stupid. And whatever. We need things to talk about. You got to fill airtime, I guess, but it's just kind of silly and a non-story to me. And so I guess we're talking about it. So it is what it is. But man,
yeah,
it's frustrating when we're just reaching for stuff to talk about. Yeah,
and there's real things to talk about with this team. You don't have to make things up. And if you wanna, if you're trying to go the sky is falling clicks route, you can find things about this roster. This team's not gonna win a Super Bowl this year.
Right.
You don't have to make things up.
Yeah. So anyways, all right, let's get the heck out of here. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. The chat's been blowing up. We appreciate you guys.
You guys are awesome.
Being lit tonight, as Walker said. We appreciate you guys. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And again, Saturday afternoon we'll be back, and we'll be back again next Wednesday with another joint practice update. Of course, it'll be a little bit less in depth because neither of us will have been there, but nevertheless, we'll do our best to keep up and follow along with what's going on. So, thank you to everyone. Be good to each other, and go Pats.